often.
Love it.
All right. So I only got through like 3 items, but last night was interesting. I was up to like nearly 1 a.m. And I say that because what I was doing is I was talking to my son. And I remember years ago, Greg, you're going to remember this. I can remember years ago having this conversation with one of our dear friends, and you know her really well, Joanna Williams, right? And Joanna Williams, I remember, came into my office one day and she was completely distraught, completely sideways, anxious, and just really stressed out. This is like a decade ago. I mean, it could have been maybe as many as 12 or 13 years ago. And I remember the conversation we had, and it was about how to contain the level of anxiety, stress, the pressure, and all these different things. Well, last night, I was coming back from St. George, and all day, my son, or our son, since you did, yes, that's right. Just a little part, right? Our son, in the process of that, was like acting so weird all day. And in the process of all of it, finally, I mean, I've spent hours with him. We had golfed, we had driven back from St. George. Finally, he comes clean, like, what's going on? And he said, I'm having I feel like heart palpitations, and it's all, choked up, and I'm having a panic attack. And I'm all, well, welcome to the club. That's great. And of course he didn't like, finally, of course he didn't like that answer. And as we bantered back and forth, and, he started sulking even more, but he had been quiet, which is not like him, all day. And I was trying to figure out what was going on. I would not let him alone. I would just stop. I could not stop harassing him, poking at him, hugging him, put my arm around him, sitting on him, leaning on him, talking to him. And I just constant until I broke through. And just basically to where finally he's like, you don't understand. He's like, well, what's bugging you? Everything's bugging you. And I said, well, could you be more specific? And he went on to talk about the fact that this week he leaves for school. He's been home. There's, of course, all the pandemic issues. There's the issues, and he's going to school in California. So it's a whole other level. He's kind of gotten settled in during this winter break. Baseball's just about to start. He got on a call with his coach. They're talking about, you got to test 2-3 times a week. Even if you've had the vaccine, you still need to, all sorts of stuff that are just swirling for him. His girlfriend is here. And so in the process of all of that, I just thought it was interesting to just ask him. I said, so what are you doing about that? He's like, well, I'm wearing a heart monitor, which he's wearing a heart monitor right now because he just had heart surgery in August. And in fairness, having gone through this personally, everything that he's going through, I remember shortly after I had surgery, you keep thinking everything's happening. And that heart monitor kind of just makes you realize, oh, wait, the stuff that you think is happening, it ain't happening. And it's really kind of just a bizarre thing. You start feeling things in your chest. You start feeling, every little heartbeat, every little itch, every little misbeat. You become so conscious and so aware of what either your heart is or isn't doing. You literally become obsessed with it. And then all of a sudden the panic rises, and then all the things are going around. He's like, here he is, 19 years old, checking his blood pressure. He's doing all sorts of, I saw him a few days ago doing, I'm like, why are you checking your blood pressure? And he's like, is this normal? Is this normal? Oh, yeah. 112 over 70 is pretty good. Just if you know anything about blood pressure. Being that last few weeks, I was at 210 over 110. So that was an exciting moment for me. But my point is this. I said, what are you doing? I brought the Joanna Williams because the same story. I asked her, what are you doing to control your mindset, your belief system, your anxiety, your stress? And she went on to tell me, she goes, well, I'm being coached. And I said, okay, that's great. What else are you doing? And she said, well, I'm not sure. Well, last night, you know what Isaac told me? I said, what are you doing? And he said, one thing. And he said, I do it every night. I said, oh, perfect. Right before you go to sleep. I said, but you don't even have anything to work from the entire day. And he said, I meditate. And he kept repeating, I meditate. Like, anything else? No. He literally could not answer anything else. So I just want to put out again that there's no way you're going to move through your life without high levels of stress, high levels of anxiety, high levels of strain, high levels of disappointment, high levels of everything. The question is not there, are you going to have it happen? But is he sat there and he kept staring at the ground and, slumped down shoulders and, feeling sorry for himself and not listening to me for a period of time. It was interesting. I said, you want to be in that space. No, I don't. Yes, I go, you do. You want to be in that space because you're not doing anything different to change it. And so sometimes we get in these times in our lives where we believe that people don't understand, which they may or may not, which isn't even relevant. And number two, we get in this space where we think that there's nothing that we can do about it. And I said to him, I said, so let's see here. Let's assume you don't make it through the night. So last night or yesterday, the entire day, you completely wasted it. Your last day on earth. This is when I finally broke through him with Nikki. I said, your last day on earth, and you were a complete, I had a few other words, but idiot. I said, so this is your last day of breath, existence, and you walked around and moped the entire time. Does any of that make sense? Of course, he sat and paused for a minute. This is where he started to break through. He said, well, no. I said, no, it doesn't make any sense. So I said, what are you saying to yourself? So let's just start with a few things, right? And Jennifer and I were talking about this. I said, what would you do if someone came to you and said, hey, I'm highly anxious, I'm stressed, I'm freaked out, lots of crazy things happening. You've had crazy things happening. You've got crazy things happening. How are you going to deal with those moments? Well, the first thing is really, in my opinion, is the goal. And the goal is this, and that is that you are going to stay in a bright and light space. Now, here's the thing. Even in the midst of all the things I had happen, some of you may or may not know, right? Let's see, 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago, I was in the hospital over an 8-day period of time, 4 different times in the ER, blood pressure going crazy, staph infection, thinking I might be dying. But in the midst of all of that, Jennifer still said, she goes, I understand how you remain so calm. Why did you remain so calm? Why did you remain such at peace? Well, that's not just an accident. It's because I choose to. I had some things a week or two ago I had to do with the company, had to have some really intense conversations, terminations, different things that were going on. And I remember she goes, man, it's interesting. You remain so calm. Well, I'm calm because I make it that way, because I do certain things to ensure that happens, because I have an objective that no matter what, bad things, tough things, brutal things are going to happen in life. Losses of life, losses of relationships, losses of your health, losses of money, losses of deals, losses in so many different areas of our lives. Then we sit back and go, well, okay, today I have to have a horrible day because of it. And we say, well, I don't consciously say that, right? But you do not have a key, true blue battle plan to alter it. So just like Joanna Williams said to me, over a decade ago, well, I'm being coached. Okay, you're doing one of the things that are necessary. Isaac yesterday, he just kept repeating, I meditate. I said, finally, I went, you meditate at night before you're going to bed. I said, hey, that's cool, but you have actually nothing to help you stay strong, vibrant, light, bright, a beautiful state through the rest of the day. So what are you doing? And he went, we're all teenagers do. I don't know. And we had this little, I go, that's evident. And I go, for some reason, you don't think I know. And he said, but the reality is I do. There is literally nothing, Isaac, you're experiencing right now that I have not experienced. Nothing. After my heart surgery, I remember standing over there, or standing on this floor, second floor. I had my heart surgery. And I remember about 6 months after it, I came up to John's side and I said, it's happening again. I said, he's like, what's happening again? My heart's racing again. I need to go to the hospital. I need to go to the ER. So he's like, all right, let's go. So we drive straight to the ER. I walk in. Of course, it's the way to get right into a room. Just say that you're having chest pain and you think something's wrong with your heart. I get swept up into my room. They start doing all their tests, hoping I don't have a heart attack, putting me on oxygen. And what am I saying to you, Jen? I'm going, I know it. It's happening again. My heart's racing. I know it's happening again. I'm getting more and more and more and more panicked. And all of a sudden they do all the tests and they could tell my panic was there. And they said, hey, how about we put you on some oxygen? And so I remember getting on oxygen and everything started to calm down. And then the doctor came back and said, nothing's wrong. You're fine.
Wow.
And what I remember, Rick, and I can still remember the next day, is that I had put myself in such a frenzy. And yes, there was so much happening with business, so much happening with the market, so much stress was going on that I haven't really talked a lot about this. Not that I'm open book, but I had a complete nervous breakdown and my nerves were shot because I had absolutely put myself there. Now, has life put me there? No, because it's how I respond to my life is what that puts me there. So I think it's just important that as you move through your life and you see the stresses of life, the anxiety, the things that don't work out perfectly, the things that you didn't have happen the way you wanted to, the unknowns, the what ifs, the fear, the depression, the anxiety, and you say, well, wait, how do I handle all of it? You can handle all of it because you were built to handle it. So let's go to this first thing again. The goal is to stay bright and light in the midst of all chaos and tragedy, because you can. But it's a decision to say, okay, where do I choose to spend my time? When a deal implodes or something goes wrong in business, how do you respond? Do you respond with a different story? Do you respond in a different fashion, in a different way? That's entirely up to you, because the thing is you start using tools. If the goal is to stay bright and light under any circumstance, and a lot of people will still say, oh, you don't understand. Oh, you don't understand my situation. Maybe not, but even if I don't, why would you want to stay there? Right? Why would you want to stay in a negative, dark, gloomy space? Maybe I don't understand exactly what you're going through. That's not the point. I have my things I go through and you have your things you go through. But if my objective is to be bright light, and really my objective is I want to feel joy, I want to feel happiness. And the thing is that there's going to be things happening every single day that can steal that from me. And so the circumstances of my life, the things that are going on in my life can steal my joy, my happiness. Another word you might put up there is peace. So if those are my objectives, and how I keep that is I stay in a bright and light space, or as Tony Robbins will often say, a beautiful space, right? A beautiful state. That's entirely up to you. The question is you say, well, I don't want to be there, as Isaac told me yesterday. It's not like I want this to happen. Well, I don't think you want it to happen. I get that. But the reality is that it will still happen if you don't do anything about it. So the question then comes down to is, what tools are you using to make sure that you don't stay there? That you don't stay dark, gloomy, heavy-hearted, right? That gloom, and here's what's interesting. Isaac, I made him look me in the eyes. He wouldn't look me in the eyes last night. And I said, it doesn't do anything. Really? Because we heal with each other. We heal in the midst of people. And it's very rare that you will heal all alone. So the thing is whatever you're trying to heal from, whatever you're trying to do, it's the other cells or the other people around you that help you to heal. They're an infrastructure, they're a support. And just looking people in the eye, it's interesting. When you want to stay dark, gloomy, and panic, you don't want to look people in the eye. You try to avoid all contact at all costs. Just think about what happens, what state gets you in there, right? And if you've ever been to an Unleashed Power Within, they'll talk about that state. You'll start drooping your shoulders. You'll look down at the ground. You won't stand up tall. You won't look people in the eye. You won't be smiling. Your shortness of breath. You won't be breathing in deep breath. You won't be clearing the oxygen out or the carbon dioxide. Yeah, dioxide. Monoxide, dioxide.
We know what you're doing.
Monoxide? All right, who's the scientist in here?
One of those
Dioxide or what comes out of you, Jim?
Carbon
Dioxide, right? Monoxide is out of the car, right?
Right.
Just checking. All right, okay, got that squared away. There's your science lesson for the day.
We
all right, all right. But my point is that all of these are signs that you are standing. So if I look at first of all the tools, first of all, and as I would tell you, exercise. Now you can do it in other ways. But if you're stressed and you're freaking out, so what did I tell him? I said, it's interesting. Since you've been back since from school. Here you are, you're playing baseball at a world-class level in the sense of the guys you're competing with, and how many times have you really worked out? Well, he's hardly worked out, which is interesting. Over the last 2-3 weeks, he has hardly been in the gym. He's hardly thrown. He's hardly worked out. He's played a heck of a lot of golf, but he hasn't worked out. And in fairness, yeah, that's fun, but it's not working out. It's not getting oxygen in your system, pushing muscles, doing his band work. So all these things that he was supposed to be doing to be a great pitcher, he was doing none of. Next thing, these aren't in any particular order, but let's just, we talked about this, and we talked a little bit about this last week, but mastering your story. What's the story you choose to tell yourself, right? We each have a story. And so yesterday I mocked a story that he was probably telling himself. I was a little sarcastic. Let me guess, this is the story you're telling yourself. And it was right. He was telling himself a story of how tough it is. You don't understand. And my heart's this. And, you know, I got to go back to school. I go, what, you think it's a new story? The question is this: some of you need to divorce the old story and marry a new one. So what's the story you tell yourself? If your objective is to stay in joy, light, happiness, brightness, when all of the stuff is happening, can you still stay in the light, bright space, even when tragedy, struggle is going on? That becomes a decision on your part. It doesn't mean bad things aren't going to happen. I guarantee you they are. They will for sure happen, right? My statement I've made for years: treat everybody you meet as if they're going through the most difficult moments of their lives, and you will be right most of the time. Did any of you know that she was going through that when she showed up today? Most of you probably didn't. No one knew that Ruby was going through that. That's interesting, right? But she was here because you treat everybody you meet as if they're going through the most difficult moments of their lives, and you're going to be right most of the time. So if there's anything you can be kind, and maybe just ask a few more questions before you cast all of your judgment. Exercise, master the story. Next, of course, which he mentioned, meditate. Well, is meditation. It's a combination of prayer. It's a combination of breath. It's a combination of focus of the future. We wake up every day with the idea that our past is going to equal our future. Meditation is about crafting a new future. It's about wiring yourself for a brighter future. It's about wiring yourself to seeing something better than it was before. It's about focusing inwardly instead of outside of you. It's about making sure that you focus, and let's just put it down here as a separate thing, but is your breath, right? Or as you breathe. The fact is that for every single one of us, our breath, our meditation, our focus, which is the next thing I talked to him about. Focus. And that key, guys, is a choice. So someone sat down to me, I'd first say, well, tell me what you're focusing on. Okay, great. Tell me the story you're telling me about. Okay, what are you doing to create a better story? What are you doing to meditate? What are you doing to breathe? Are you exercising? What do you think the answer is every single time? No. And then I always start to believe, I need to focus on, I need to focus on all this, because that's what they want to do, because they want to feel the heaviness of the moment. Whether you want to describe it as the gloom, the darkness, the tragedy, the toughness of the deal, personal stuff. The fact is that there's a period of time. So have you ever heard people say, I only stay in this space for 5 minutes? I only stay in that, people will define how long they choose to stay in that space. How long am I going to allow myself to be doom, gloom, sad, heavy-hearted? How long? Now, the thing is, you may say, well, wait a second here. But again, you don't understand. I'm not saying I understand. But what I do know is that there is a distinct decision. When you want to stay in the heaviness of the gloom, the sadness, the disappointment, the frustration, the challenge of the moments, and you choose to sit, it's a decision, at least acknowledge that you have the right to focus wherever you choose to focus. And that's your right. And then you can craft a story around that. And then you can meditate towards the future, get your breath and clear out all of the anxiety, and make sure that you're exercising. And all of a sudden, we haven't even talked about the things I normally would talk about. Then I said, well, what are you reading? Of course, what did he say? What did I ask Isaac? I said, what are you reading? Well, I'm reading inspiring things. Where? Well, Instagram. Really? Really? And I'm not suggesting there aren't a few things that are there, but it's whatever pops up. See, the difference of Instagram is creating the algorithm for what they want you to watch. Not with you going in and going, I am going to find something specific in regards to crafting the better mindset, to creating a stronger belief system. That is not happening when you're just surfing, in so many words, Instagram. And I'm not suggesting you can never do that, but if you're in this space of panic attacks, which is what he said yesterday, panic attacks. Well, you don't understand. Well, when you get panicked, you don't breathe. But there's all this stuff. I mean, my gosh, even if you just listen to Wim Hof, do you know who that guy is? Do you know who Wim Hof is? Wim Hof is the guy who sits in ice water for hours and proves that your mind over matter. He has everything. He has some really famous little YouTube things about breath and controlling the anxiety and freeing yourself from all the panic, stress, and anxiety. But because we want to stay here, and because this requires a ton of work, and this, again, we haven't listed everything, but let's rattle out a few more. Reading. And then I talked about the fact of writing in your journal, which I know I talked a little bit about last week. Expressing yourself, sharing your ideas. When you're disconnected, what are you watching? What are you listening to? Who are you spending your time with? All of these have an impact on your joy, happiness, and peace. So again, I go back to that all of this is just about it's using tools. Now that's just a handful of things. I mean, other things I love to review my goals. I like to remember and know where I'm going, right? Jim, where are you going? Jim walked into the room, guys.
I'm not afraid.
You shouldn't be. Where are you going?
I'm going to Paris by November 1st.
Excellent. I like that. And how many deals you closing this year?
We got to do 10 a month. And we said 100 million for our team, but we need to get to 150 million.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. That was already written.
See, here's the deal though, Jim, is you can change the goal, just know where you're going, right? That's the key for any of us. And when you know where you're going, if your desire is light, bright, joy, peace, happiness, then you'll look for tools to make it so. If your goal is arbitrary, meaning you don't even think about it, it's like whatever, however the winds of life are blowing, and all of a sudden, bad days, good days, why can't you stack more good days? No matter what's going on, it is a decision on your part to get rid of the heaviness, the gloom, the darkness, the panic, the stress, the fear, because you choose to use tools to do so. And the last thing I talked to him yesterday about, I said, and this isn't new to many of you, but gratitude. Gratitude and fear cannot coexist. I've proven this to myself over and over and over again. I will say things like, I'm grateful, I'm grateful, I'm grateful, I'm grateful, I'm grateful. Because here's the deal, guys. I like to feel good. It's that simple. I like to feel good. I like to be happy. I like to feel joy. I like to laugh. I like to have peace of mind. I want to feel that. And so if I want to feel that, and knowing that every single day there will be challenge, struggle, stress, and things that will come at me. But if I let those things impact me at levels that steals my brightness, my light, my joy, and my happiness, it's because I choose to allow that to happen, because I choose to be unresourceful by using the tools that I've even listed here, and there's more. Right, getting adequate sleep and doing all the things that are necessary to ensure the fact that you are bright, you are light, you are happy, you are joyful, and that happiness is building and it is in every area of your life. And if you don't do these things, I can just tell you, you're at the mercy of whatever is happening that day outside of you. Good deals, bad relationships, good relationships. Someone honked their horn or didn't honk their horn. I was watching yesterday, watching Isaac hit golf shots. and he hit some bad shots. And I started crushing him, which I love to do in golf, just for the record, because he has so much confidence. And I started beating him. And I started I was 1 under after like 4 holes. And the thing that was interesting about the whole experience, it started getting worse. You started getting more panic, started getting more tight, started getting more struggling. You started hitting his ball off line. He started hitting putts short and long, because that's what happens when you get stressed and you go into panic and you go into that mode of heaviness, gloom, and fear and stress. Everything tightens up. Everything goes sideways. So I just want to challenge you that as you move through your life, make a commitment that, in the words of Andy Andrews, if you have not read the book, The Traveler's Gift, everybody read that? No, you have, Greg, right? You've read it?
Just bought it.
You haven't read it? That is the book that got me into reading, which is interesting.
We did book club on it.
That is the book that got me into reading. And in that book, he talks about 7 key decisions. One of the decisions, it is such a well-written book, such a fun audio too, if you haven't listened to the audio, because he plays all these different people from Anne Frank to Harry S. Truman, you name it. But there is a distinct thing that he talks about with Anne Frank, that as you read her journals, and a few years ago, we had the chance to go and be there with her in her place where they stayed for years in Amsterdam. And we went there, and you start reading her story, you start reading her journal entries. Despite no matter how bad it got, she stayed in the light. She stayed positive, bright, hopeful. That's why she's an inspiration. That's why she's an icon for humanity. Because in the midst of all tragedy, when she was taken by the Nazis, only 3 months, they'd stay there for nearly 3-4 years. And in a month or 2 or 3 months before the war was over, someone found them, snitched on them, and they came and took them away, and they were killed in Auschwitz. Or I think actually some of them in Auschwitz, and other ones in another area, if I recall. But my point is still this: she somehow figured out as a young lady that these things mattered, and that despite whatever was going on, she was going to stay positive. And the reality is, as long as I've seen it, we aren't in Auschwitz. Now, people like to talk about the pandemic and the power of the forceability of a mask, and so all of a sudden saying that now, look, the regime has here. You're nowhere near those levels. Do we ever want to be there? No, of course not. Do we want to, instill and fight for our freedoms? Of course we do. But the fact is that you're free no matter where you are. Viktor Frankl said it best, right? Which was simply, in so many words, I'll say in so many words, because there are a few stories I'd share, but we're out of time. But basically, no one can take away your mind. It doesn't matter where you are. No matter how confined you are physically, no one can take away the peace, the joy, and the happiness you feel, and even in the midst of all tragedy, struggle, and strife. So just commit to yourself as to who are you going to be? Someone who is, I remember I made the decision, I remember I hurt the feelings of someone who was at Zion's Bank. And I remember when I was going through this process of, wait a second, who do I want to be? And after I hurt their feelings, I had to send them remember this, John? I had a huge bouquet of flowers because I was such an idiot. It was my decision. She wouldn't even, because I had made a decision that no matter where I show up in life, no matter who I'm around, their life will be better because I am there. And all of a sudden I realized that I was showing up outside of places in work, and I wasn't inspiring people to be better. That if I met the person at the checkout line, or I meet the person who is at the local supermarket, and instead of just ignoring them and acting like they don't exist, I would engage and I would make a difference no matter where I showed up. And the only way, I didn't want to make a difference of being heavy, gloomy, and dark and in a panic. I wanted to make a difference in being bright, light, joyful, and happy, and bringing people light. So it was a decision. And when I made that decision, I realized, man, there are tools to ensure that I can stay there. So I better use them, or I'm not going to stay there. And so when I show up on a phone, or I show up in an appointment, or I show up in a listing, or show up with a buyer, who am I being? And what decision have I made to be? And it all starts once the decision is made of who you're going to be, then you'll start instilling tools to stay there. So remember, the heaviness, the darkness is a decision as much as it is to stay bright and light. And once you begin to realize that, you will find and use the tools. But again, some of you love to stay in that space of gloom. It's just human nature. It's easier, by the way, to stay there. Not as joyful, but easier, which is really interesting. Easier to stay there because being there, you don't have to do anything. It's just whatever life serves up. This space right up here, you got to do things. You got to craft a life that you do on purpose, not by accident. So it should never matter if a deal implodes. It should never matter if a buyer doesn't come together. It should never be a problem. Because when you really look at the level of problems, right? We usually don't have a lot of them when we compare them to what other people are going through. It's just the nature of the beast. It just is. And there's always someone worse off, always, than what you're dealing with. Okay? Any thoughts or comments? Anybody?
I just love the statement that you said when you ask a confronting question that you want to stay in that space because if you didn't, you would do something about it.
Yeah.
I wrote that down.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Yeah. And again, I go back to guys, sometimes when people hear this, I'm not saying you're saying this, that I'm saying this, but sometimes people think that I'm like, I don't have any sensitivity to people's problems. I totally do. I could be as sympathetic and compassionate about anything you're dealing with, but it doesn't change anything for you. I can be as kind and gracious to my son Isaac, go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you're in a panic. What can I do? And then guess what? He walks out the door still being what? In a panic. Heavy, gloomy, and dark. So it's not, it has nothing to do with our compassion with one another. It has to do with what state of mind and emotion do you choose to live your life in the majority of the time? And that is a decision by every single one of us.
And I think it takes a lot of work. It's
Oh.
not something that is.
Oh, yeah.
You're gonna have moments if you've gone through anything ups and
Getting knocked
downs,
off your axis and like, how do I get back?
and surrounding yourself with people that are gonna support you and be there for you, and what you listen to, the meditation thing. I mean,
Yeah.
that's become.
But look at just even the simple things, Nikki. I mean, just one simple thing of, and I don't even know if I'd even full blown call it exercise, but a combination of meditation and exercise of just the hikes and the walks that you and I have talked about, and the clearing and the connection that happens for you because of where you want to be and where you want to remain in regards to clearing all of that with all the, because you've had tragedy that no one would wish upon anybody ever. Right. I mean, I got a situation that we have so unfortunate. There's an agent in California. She said goodnight to her husband. He said, I'll see you in the morning. He was on a trip with a bunch of guys and never woke up. No health issues, no underlying conditions. Crazy. That happened just a day and a half or 2 days ago. Right. And the thing is there's going to be tragedy every single day. But you have a choice every single day to choose who you choose to be. And that's why I go back to is choose to be happy.